right, thank you and welcome to the Corporate Services Standing Committee meeting of March 4th, 2025. I can confirm that we have a quorum. We've already read the acknowledgement of First Nation. So if I can have someone move the agenda, please.
I move the agenda be adopted as amended, to add it in camera session under F, other business.
Okay.
I second it.
Any other additions, comments? Okay, all in favor? Perfect. We have our minutes in your package from the past Corporate Services Standing Committee meetings. Can I have someone move those minutes?
I move that the minutes from the Corporate Services Standing Committee meeting on February 4th, 2025 be adopted as presented.
Seconder?
I'll second.
Correct. Is there any discussion, comments? Councillor Correct.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a follow-up to the minutes that were amended. Regarding, in the minutes, we talked about a motion that was passed to have the mayor write to the Minister of ITI regarding the 2030 tourism strategy consultations, or the lack thereof at the time for the Fort Smith component of it. They have since decided that it would be appropriate for them to offer a session here in Fort Smith, which is actually taking place this Thursday at 6 p.m. Doing a review of the GNWT's Have Your Say website regarding the tourism thing, I've noticed that the majority of the communities, there's a couple of other ones like Fort Smith, where they've decided to roll, most of the other communities are having an afternoon session with the tourism industry sector, and then later in the evening having a public session. Here in Fort Smith, they roll them both into just a public session from 6 to 8 p.m. And to throw I don't see why they couldn't find the willingness to send somebody down to actually talk to us. They're going to host it virtually. And to me, that's basically ITI sort of going, spit in our eyes and say, you're a second-class community when it comes to tourism strategy. Like, we are considered one of the tourism hubs of the NWT. We've got some of the best natural attractions in the NWT. We're a significant host community for festivals and things like this. And here they are saying, well, nah, you guys, it doesn't really matter what you have to say. So I would really appreciate it if the mayor would consider following up with the minister, saying, like, this is unacceptable behavior from ITI, that we should be treated in the same category as Hay River, Yellowknife, Manoogic, when it comes to hosting tourism discussions and participating in the tourism industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Correct. Your comments are noted. There's been no direction or recommendation made in that. Just a statement?
It was a statement.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments from the minutes?
Could we put that in motion? For amended?
Make a call.
Yeah.
If you want, I'll put it forward as a motion.
Okay. So recommendation for mayor to follow up with the letter that was sent.
Yes,
In
I
regards to-
recommend that the mayor follow up with the Minister of ITI regarding the level and degree of consultation with the community of Fort Smith regarding the 2030 tourism strategy and more in general, the tourism sector overall.
Councillor Carson?
Don't we have to pass the minutes first? We can't have a motion within a motion?
Oh, good call, I think you're right. Okay, thank you, so we'll put that aside.
So it's still just a statement.
It's still just a statement, and we'll finish that. Is there any other comments on the minutes? Okay, all in favor? Thank you.
My motion.
Councillor Cruvet's motion. Councillor Karsha?
Oh, no, I thought you were calling for all in favor of the minutes. Sorry.
Okay, yep, I did that, sorry. I think there's a delay on the camera, that's all, okay.
Yeah, I think motion
Yeah.
needs a secondary.
All right, so then, and then Councillor Benoit will second that motion. Perfect. Any other discussion?
Just one question I need to ask
Deputy Mayor?
Councilor Brad. Correct me if I'm wrong, but did they not do the last plan the same way as well, virtually with Portsmouth? This is the second time we've been virtual.
I know there was issues the last time around about Fort Smith was not included on the initial consultation requirements. Unfortunately, my memory doesn't serve me well tonight as to whether they actually did an in-person or whether this time they've basically said, yeah, they're hosting, there'll be a virtual hosting of it.
Any other comments to the motion on the floor? Okay, all in favor? It is passed. All right, moving on the agenda, we have in your package the accounts payable report. It is just for your information to review. If there are any questions or concerns or comments? Nope, not on my list. Oh, yes, it is. Sorry, I went ahead of myself. Sorry, I crossed out the wrong one. My mistake. Corporate Services Director's Report, please, is in our package. Not before the accounts payable report. It is in your package. Is there any comments from the Director's Report? Or would the Director like to speak to his report? Keep looking there because I'm not often, there's two directors sitting here.
Do you want to talk to the corporate?
Good.
Thank you.
All good for my perspective.
Go ahead if you'd like to speak to it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple things I'd like to highlight in the director's report. The accounts receivable clerk position has been filled. Our department still does have 2 vacancies. The director's position, and now with the filling of the accounts receivable clerk, the receptionist position is now vacant. That position is up to competition and is being run both internally and externally, and it closes on March 14th. The other item that I'd like to make note of is that regarding the audit, in the report, it says that the auditor is scheduled to be around March 17th. They are now going to be around March 27th to April 3rd. So we still look forward to having being prepared for the audit and having the audited financial statements passed by council before the April 30th deadline as required. That's all I'd like to point out in my report.
Thank you. Does the council have any questions regarding the Corporate Services Director's Report? No? Okay, thank you very much for your report. Now, moving on, we have the accounts payable report in your package. Is for your review, for information. Do you have any questions? All right, seeing no questions on the accounts payable list report, we have our correspondence. Is there any questions in regard to the correspondence? Councillor Cruvet?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just noticed there's a letter of invite regarding Smith Landing's Treaty Land Entitlement 25th Anniversary Celebration. Do we know what the date of that is at this point?
Yes, it's attached, it's the,
Oh,
Sorry, it's in May.
May 10th, 9th to 10th.
Yeah, they're gonna swing big.
Oh, that's exciting. It's the 25th anniversary, so,
So it's gonna be a film.
okay. Counselor, or,
Sorry, literally said back.
oh, yeah, I thought you were, you know, wasn't paying attention. All right, so there's no other comments on the correspondence? Okay, Counselor Crevet?
Yeah, just regarding that piece of correspondence, I would like to see the town sort of step forward and look at working with Smith Landing to ensure the celebration is well promoted and that we invite as many people as we can to join in this from out of town to show them what good tourist hosts we are.
So, moving.
So we can speak to any of them?
You can, yeah, you can speak to any of the letters, for sure.
You're the chair, so.
Yeah, that's correct.
The Uncle Gates Friendship Center letter was an interesting read.
Mm.
I just don't want to blow by it tonight and not discuss that they're asking for us to give them a different rate. They're saying that our rate, if I rate these numbers right, 23,000 for 1, 2, 3 years of licensing. That seems a big number to me. I understood this right. So before we just move on tonight, I think that needs to be at least talked about, or we need to decide how we're going to handle it.
Counselor Jack, can I hand this off to you? I just want to speak to this letter a little bit.
Sure.
Thanks, so you're the chair. Can I speak?
There for a decision.
Thank you. So this is not the first time that this specific request from folks that access our lottery licenses has come to us, and it seems that I remember it came a couple of years ago as well with almost the exact same type of request, and I thought we had addressed it with our bylaw, but I don't think we did then, because I thought we made some adjustments to make it more equitable for folks that are applying for a lottery license when they're like for something like this, where they source almost all of their funding streams for fundraising to pay for their operations. And so this should be addressed with our bylaws that are being, as one of the, it's because this is not an isolated occurrence for folks that access our lottery licenses. And I think it should be one of our priorities when it comes to reviewing our bylaws. Now that we've gone through that process, through that RFP, this does have a significant impact on like NGOs in our community and anyone who access our lottery licenses. And the sooner we address something like this could probably make some significant impacts for the positive in our community. So if we can maybe prioritize that on one of our bylaw review.
Any supplemental?
No, that was it.
I'll pass the chair back.
Thanks.
Can I discuss it as well?
Councilor Heaton?
I don't know if it's a conflict, because I am an employee of Uncle Gabe's Friendship Center, but I can still speak about it.
I don't think you're in conflict.
So, there's no decision.
No, it's a discussion.
Sure, so I'm gonna definitely champion this, and thank you for Deputy Mayor Fraser for bringing this up. Like, the amount of children that run through Uncle Gabe's Friendship Center is significant. And we're not only providing lunch program, but we're also doing snacks in the evening time when the youth center is open. And that adds up with the building being as old as it is, infrastructure issues obviously. But the core funding that comes from the friendship centers within Canada is just not enough. And we know already that the lunch program is struggling with just volunteers. There's a lot of children within our community that go hungry on the day-to-day. We can't keep closing our eyes to that. There a lot of families that are on the verge of poverty, and they use the services of the Youth Friendship Center to help mitigate those, you know? So if we can do any type of bingo reassessment specifically for NGOs or charities, like please, we're all begging for you to do it. You know, like, we just really, really need to help these services continue in the future, because if we don't, then, you know, that's gonna be 30 plus kids not even eating lunch, and then 15 plus kids every night in the youth center that's not getting anything. So please, this really, really needs to be fixed.
Thank you. Any other comments in regards to correspondence? Councillor B?
No, I
Oh,
think,
oh,
they're just trying to.
okay.
Councillor Cox has a question.
Oh, Councillor Cox?
Thanks. Yeah, I certainly a valid point with the open gates thing. I think we should take into consideration when we look at the rates and services bylaw, which I assume is where we address that. But I hadn't thought about, is there a set schedule of when and kind of what timelines, and is there a regular time when that bylaw gets reassessed and addressed?
Thank you. Councillor Corbett?
Yeah. Ted, I guess part of the question would be clarification on whether Uncle Gabe's Friendship Center is a registered charity. And in such a case, I think it would be quite appropriate for our bylaw to reflect a reduced rate for registered charities. Because usually to establish yourself as a registered charity, there are additional requirements for accountability on how you raise monies and where those funds are expended. So I'd be quite comfortable as a member of the bylaw committee to recommend that we have a separate category under lottery licenses for registered charities.
Any other comments? Deputy Mayor?
Not on that one, but on another letter.
Okay, we'll just, are we finished with the discussion on this letter specific? Okay, all right, cool. Deputy Mayor?
I wasn't sure how if we go through letter by letter to have any comments. So, the letter from Earl Evans on the Caribou stuff, it's a good summary letter. Thank you very much for that, Earl. Is there a chance to get our hands on that? It sounds like there's a report attached to this.
It's on my desk. I have a
Okay.
big report, you can
I'm
copy it.
thinking at least Carl Cox would be interested in it, Councillor Cox, and I'm, Parky, I'm always interested in wildlife studies.
Sure.
So, if that's possible, I'd like to thank Earl for keeping us informed.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Any other comments on the correspondence? Okay. All right. Okay. Seeing none, going to move on to the agenda then. We're moving to E, administration.
Literally.
I'm like, did I miss another line? Oh, here. I'm like, I thought I was reading it right. Okay, so E, administration.
I just have
Yeah.
a question.
Sure.
Like, so for example, there was a letter asking for a delegation. If we just don't respond to it in here, does that mean it doesn't happen, or? Yeah.
Food people.
Yeah. Just wondering about the process. They asked for December or January.
We can address it here. We can say, move for our administration to set up, for them to come to have a delegation.
Or if it just ask for further information.
Yeah.
I think maybe speaking to what they're proposing reducing or their equipment is quite energy intensive, so I don't know if it's the solution necessarily that we're looking for here in the community, but SF did look at the amount of organics that are going into the landfill, and it is a sizable percentage of what is going into. We have looked this isn't that solution, but some other options might feed into that conversation.
Okay, so you're asking for more information from this group?
I'd be curious to hear more information. I don't know if we need a delegation, but
A virtual call?
yeah, or virtual.
So we can just, we can make, make a recommendation that.
I think
Oh,
that-
sorry.
I didn't want to come off.
Oh,
You should actually
sure.
talk this time.
Thank you, SAO.
We can reach out to them and they would be a virtual delegation, so we could reach out to them, invite them to either share more information if they do want to attend. They're asking not to attend until later on in the fiscal year though.
Okay.
So we can definitely, and it would definitely be Ravina who would sort of respond and do the scheduling for that one.
So just from my own knowledge as a counselor, like if we don't like acknowledge that, like as the correspondence is presented here, would that just not have, like there'd be no follow-up, or how does that work?
I think it's, sorry.
Yeah.
I think it's correct that you called attention that we didn't actually speak to it, and I appreciate that. But normally if someone requests a delegation, there's a delegation form, and it would go to Ravina and she would follow up on that one.
Okay.
So she would be reaching back to them and say, here's your delegation form. So it would be followed up just automatically internally, but I appreciate that you also spoke to that, so make sure we follow up internally.
Okay, thank you.
And so for the other ones too, like this was just for information. When he presented that to us, it was just for information. Same with the invite. You don't need to have a response. But we haven't addressed actually in that same is the donation request for hockey players as well. So by not responding to it, it's no,
Okay.
right? It's correct. So, sorry, did you want to speak to that?
Well, that's what I mean.
Yes.
Are we overlooking this or?
No, no, we're not overlooking it. It's here. If we don't respond to it, it's no.
So we should go through.
Okay. So then, for I guess the only one not addressed then is the ones for the young hockey players. I should declare, I think my child's part of that hockey team. So, just, yeah,
Could you did hand out the chair?
yeah, my kid's on that hockey team. So, yes, I should not be part of this conversation. You're asking for a donation request for something that.
But as the chair, you can't speak, so that's up to you, Jeff.
Well, I guess I can't speak to it. I could just
I don't know.
keep order.
Again, I'm learning the rules.
What does that mean? I can't speak to it, not vote on it. Can I still chair the meeting with it? Am I, even though?
I think you would hand over the chair and you would recuse yourself to the back of the room while the
Yeah.
conversation and decision was made.
Sure.
Oh,
So
okay.
who wants to be chair then? Counselor Corbett wants to be chair.
They effective at there. Okay. So the issue or the discussion at hand is in regards to a email request we sent to the mayor requesting they're referring to it as a sponsorship of $1,000 to assist with the a group of young hockey players competing at the Alberta Native Provincials in Edmonton on April 3 to 6, 2025. I guess my first question would be for administration. No, thank you. SAO.
The normal process is that donation requests would come in and they would go to our community services and she would process them through, she would do up all the forms and she would present it in. This got missed in that process. So what I would like to request is when is the timing of this? I'm sorry.
April 3rd.
to 6th. So we do have time within this cycle to put it through. So I'm going to request that we hold on this and that we actually bring it to our community services because then I haven't looked at the budget on this and see what we have remaining in our budget. So that's the normal process is for that. So we'll just make sure that we follow process on this. If I could request that we refuse this or wait on this, we'll bring it forward to municipal services next week.
Do we vote that?
Sorry, yeah, community services. That'll go onto the community services package. No, I think we just not, we didn't make a motion, so we're good. Good enough to table. I will make sure that this goes forward to next week's package.
Okay. Thank you, that's it.
No questions again?
Deputy Mayor.
Just, in part of getting that ready for next week, just, again, because we're new, I just, as one of our first big asks, what's sort of, is there a way to sort of give background on $1,000 a big ask, or in our normal range of donations or sponsorships? I just all new to this whole program, so.
Within the briefing, we could definitely give you sort of what the average asks are. If this is an ask that was here last year, if this was something that we randomly provided.
Yeah, just to give some framework
yeah,
around it.
definitely make
Allegedly, it's brand new. I don't know if this is a big ask or a little ask. I just don't know. And nothing to compare it to in my scope.
I'll ask the Director of Community to make sure that she puts in some of the history of how we
Okay.
educate council. Or we'll do a separate briefing, just about donations. That works.
Probably be some mention of the donation policy. Yeah.
Or somebody.
Okay, I see no further thing. Would you like to take care of that?
Thank you. Councilor Heaton?
So just like for moving forward, when correspondence come forward, we are going to address each.
If it's required, some say no response required, but I think that was a really good, I wasn't thinking about saying, hey, yeah, we should. So yeah, if one requires an answer to, then yes.
Well,
Deputy Mayor?
Earl's doesn't require an answer, but I would like to see the data that he provided, so, yeah, but that's, in the quest of how we see this, I think we should be able to at least say, well, is there something we can see on that, or?
Yeah,
Because it's,
absolutely.
okay, because it's not just the ones that need an answer, sometimes there's more detail on. Okay, good.
Councilor Corbett?
Yeah, just a point, well, not a point of order or anything like that, but just for information purposes, when you see things within the package, like if there's a request for a report, it's quite very much in your, I don't want to say authority, but you can ask for administration to provide a copy of that report from the information.
All right, so any other comments on the correspondence list? Okay, awesome. Good talk, good, actually, really good conversation, right? So we are now moving on to e-administration. So the briefing note, camera, board meeting. For information only with SAO.
Just in the interest, and because council gets the opportunity when you do your reports to the council meetings to sort of talk about the conferences and the different meetings you attend, I thought that council would appreciate sort of knowing some of the value of the different meetings that staff attend, like the leadership summit, as well as this. So the CAMA board meeting in Ottawa was especially valuable, I felt, this time because it was in Ottawa. We got to meet with some federal representatives. We got to find out about the different funding programs that are out there. There is some risk to some of the funding. You'll read that within it. The report, there is some risk to some of the funding programs. So that was a good thing to be aware of when we're putting a lot of effort into preparing ourselves for this big funding announcement. So we're just finding that out, having that opportunity when you're in Ottawa to meet with the deputy ministers and some of the staff right on the ground is a really valuable part I found about that meeting as well. We got to meet with FCM representatives and had a really good talk about some of the initiatives they're doing. I did outline it in there. But my rationale and reason is that I feel that I should be able to bring back, or I should be bringing back the value of these meetings, the conferences, and the training that we're going to. And I'll make sure that any of the team that goes to any significant training or meetings or conferences does bring some level of report back to council. So you're aware of what the team is doing in regards to professional development, as well as what value and what information they're running outwards that could be brought back and utilized for the town. In my past life, council has done the same, maybe not in a formal briefing note, but council who's attended specific training or courses or conferences have brought something like that back. We've done a written report that presented on some of the key takeaways. ways. And I think, again, it's sort of giving back of the money that's been spent to attend these. This one is fully covered, but there's still time away. There is still a cost to the taxpayers, and for them to understand the value of this, I think it's just sharing information both ways. Any questions?
Any comments, questions? No? This was brought up during like the mayor's camp and stuff, CAMA. It was a good board to be involved in, so. With more. So, anything else? Okay, so moving on, we have the briefing note for the strategic plan.
Mayor.
Oh, yeah, still.
So as, so we got the briefing note there, but as well, each of you should have a hard copy of the strategic plan. There's supposed to be a one-pager as well that will sit on your desk. Is it laminated? Do we have it? We have it. It's not laminated yet, though. These will be laminated, or we'll put on, but I've given them to now for you guys to have. You can take them home. You can hang them on your mirrors at home. We'll tap them every day. But we will provide laminated copies to have on your desk for reference. That as well. As you know, we did not publish the full plan, as it does reference some funding that has not been officially announced yet, so we didn't want to provide that ahead of time publicly. As soon as that's officially announced, we will be publishing our finalized and approved plan.
Thank you. Any questions on the wait, we need to have a mover and a seconder.
I move that council approve the 2025 to 2029 strategic plan titled Foundation for the Future, our strategic path 2025 to 2029 as presented, and direct administration to proceed with implementation.
I second it.
All right, thank you. Is there any other comments or questions or discussion about the strategic plan? Any motion?
One comment, I guess, is this is the new vision that you're excited about, Councilor Kruger?
Much better than what we had.
Point noted.
All right, perfect. Good job. All right, all in favor? Okay. I think, I didn't see hands up with the on the screen, but it's been carried. We passed. Okay, perfect. Right on.
Carl's screen getting smaller.
I don't know, yeah. It is. Okay, so here's the big one, guys. This is what we've all been here for tonight. Our mill rates. There's a big briefing note in your package, 4 options within. I know we're gonna have lots to say. No? You guys want to start with discussion? SAO, do you want to start with well, we want to discuss first? Because there's 4 different options. I don't want to make a motion if we don't have an option yet. Do you want to give us a lead in?
Absolutely. I want to thank, I just lost his name, Director Hood, for his hard work in putting together this briefing note and presenting council with the 4 options. He has provided you with very careful analysis and very clear options in regard to where the various weighting can be put in order to achieve the tax revenue that we require in order to meet our budget this year. And so I would actually pass it to him. If there's any questions, I would ask Director Hood to speak directly to that. If any questions around the calculations or what the different values mean.
Thank you. Did you want to speak to anything, Jim, before we start? or Director for Corporate Services?
Maybe I'll just leave it for questions, and then I'm sure most of this will be covered under those anyways. So we'll deal with questions as they come.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Crevet?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess the first question, I thank the director for the diligent work put into this. I can say without hesitation, since 2018, I've been a very strong advocate of looking at increasing the mill rates on the amount of undeveloped property we have within our community. It's been a concern to mayor and council over the years. There's been very few instances where we've looked at the undeveloped properties as a separate mill rate increase. And I would just like to confirm that under this particular scenario, the mill rate for undeveloped properties would be either the 5 or the percentages as identified for each scenario. And if that is the case, I would really like to suggest that we look at the undeveloped property percentages and increase them proportionally. I think it's a way to try and provide some form of incentive or encouragement for the development of that property, or for people that are just speculating on property to move with their planned speculation. And as undeveloped property, it's not generating the tax revenue that the community could realize if it was developed property.
Thank you. Councillor Bates?
I was just wondering if where derelict properties fall into the categories here, like, if it was developed but then has fallen into disrepair and is not used, is it now considered undeveloped, or is it still say a developed property?
Good question. Director?
Would you like me to address?
Oh, sorry.
So in my analysis of the establishment of the mill rate for 2025, I did not distinguish between developed and undeveloped properties other than what had been done as part of the 2024 mill rate calculation. You can see from each example that the mill rate for residential developed and residential non-developed are different, with the non-developed being higher mill rate. So they are proportionally paying more than a vacant property. That's the same way with each classification of developed and undeveloped property. The mill rate for the developed property is lower than the mill rate for the undeveloped or vacant properties. So that's the case in each one of these scenarios. And definitely you could change the weighting of developed and non-developed properties in order to get a bigger spread in those mill rates. But for this case, the difference in weighting was based on what was done in 2024. So there hasn't been any change to that. Again, developed properties are taxed at a lower rate than vacant properties or non-developed properties in each of these scenarios. To Councillor Bates' comment, the derelict properties and things, that would be reflected in the actual assessed value of the property, which would impact the overall taxes generated from that property. So as a property buildings are tore down or come into a state of disrepair, the value of those improvements on that property decreases, and thus reduces the tax being paid by those properties.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Crevet?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did, unfortunately, I only put in the request earlier today, but we still have some time before this actually formally gets approved, just what the total assessed value for each of the categories was, so that we have a better idea of what percentage of land value does undeveloped property, well, not land value, but the taxation rate for undeveloped property versus developed property would be, to see, like, would a 10% increase in undeveloped generate a reasonable amount of revenue that could be looked to offset the developed residential rate.
So the issue with higher taxation on non-developed properties is the value of the properties are substantially lower than developed properties, obviously. You can see even in the first scenario there that the average assessed value of a residential developed property in Fort Smith is $144,596. That's the average. With non-developed properties, $16,323. So a substantial increase in the mill rate to a non-developed property has minimal impact on the overall taxation that's being generated. I can give you a quick example here, not on every single classification of property, but for example, residential developed property, the total taxable assessed value of all properties in Fort Smith, $112,346,000. The total assessment for all residential vacant properties in Fort Smith, $2,126,100. So there's a substantial difference there. A significant increase in the mill rate for vacant property yields less because of that difference in assessed value. So in each case, the value of this, vacant property as compared to assessed property is substantially less in each case. I hope that gives you some.
Looking at creative ways of knowing what's going to be happening to our economy and things in the upcoming 18 months or so, just trying to minimize our impact to the average household.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Just a question that keeps echoing in my head, so I just want to get it out there so it stops echoing, but talking mill rates and applications, I read either this briefing note or an earlier draft or something else where we talked about people with home occupations possibly paying a different mill rate than a residential going to a commercial rate because they have a business in their home. Has that ever been formally looked at further than just being talked about? I know I've read it somewhere here, I just can't remember where I read it.
The difficulty with that is assessments are done based on the classification of the property and the use of the property.
Yeah.
So if it's a residential property, regardless if it's a home occupation in that property or not, the assessed value of that property would be the same as your neighbor's or any property, regardless of its use other than for residential. The only way, or the best way to generate more revenue for home occupation businesses is to increase the fees for the home occupation business license fees, or the application fee for the development permit or that type of thing. And then that only affects the people with home occupation. If you create a mill rate for residential properties to try and capture the home occupation, all residents end up paying the price for it. And because the mill rate is applied to the class of property, not a person. Yeah.
That's fair. I just didn't understand that. Now I can turn that piece of my brain off.
You can stop the echo.
Yeah.
Councillor Cox?
Thank you. Just looking for some clarification. So as I understand it, there's a category for residential, commercial, industrial, and so on. There is currently no category for, say, derelict properties. Is that something that we could create and implement, or is that mill rate category system a MACA generated there.
Thank you.
So the assessment of properties is done by the GNWT MACA. They assess properties based on an observation of the property, and every, I think it's 8 to 10 years, they do a general assessment of the entire community. Or if we report to them that we feel the property is becoming derelict or a building has fallen down or that type of thing, we report that to them, and they adjust their assessments accordingly. The problem with that is when they adjust their assessments, that tends to lower the taxation rate on those properties, not increase them. Again, if you're trying to deal with properties that are derelict or fall under an unsightly bylaw or that type of thing, the way to do that is through fines and that type of thing, not through trying to do it through mill rates and assessments.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Bate?
I just wanted to maybe direct people's attention, maybe we can share the report with council, but SAP did do a housing needs assessment report in 2022, and there was a fair bit of discussion around this topic, a lot of discussion around this topic, and a fair bit of background research about what other municipalities have done. And based on seeing that it has been effective in other areas, one of the recommendations in the report from 2022 was, just reading from it here, develop taxation legislation that penalizes derelict vacant properties and incentivizes cleanup and demolition of derelict properties. So that was brought forward to council in the past, and it just might be of interest as we're having this discussion now.
I'm just going to remind that we are talking about this one and not the derelict building thing, and it's definitely something that we can discuss during some of the upcoming housing initiative project, would be those incentives and those disincentives, and that definitely could be something we could visit at that time, as well as during the bylaw review. We could absolutely put that towards for that one. So I think it's a valuable discussion. I think we're having some really good information here. I'm just going to remind that what we're dealing with right now is the mill rates on the current state of our zones.
I agree. I just wanted to, I think this is important, especially to what Councillor Gilbrand was speaking to, that we do have a mill rate specifically for undeveloped properties, right? And yes, the value of those properties is lower, but if we substantially increase the rate of taxation on those properties, it's not going to change the overall budget of the town, but it may provide some incentive to actually increase development in the town. So I do think it's pertinent to this conversation now.
Thank you. Councillor Quebec?
Yeah. Related to the conversation dealing with mill rates and MACA's assessment, I think something that we need to look at in the near future is to convince MACA that properties in this community are worth more than they actually are being assessed at. If you look at similar properties in other communities, their assessed value is much higher, especially undeveloped properties. They're much higher in other communities than they are here. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to be able, that taxes will increase substantially. It means we'll be able to adjust our mill rate downwards, and on other, especially if we're dealing with undeveloped property, we'll be able to garner more revenue based on their higher assessed value. So I think it's something, I know it's come up at the end of the TAC on several occasions, that MACA needs to review their legislation. I think as a community, it would be in our benefit to push for them to review the assessment values for properties here in Fort Smith. Because our rates are lower than our companion community at Bay River, for example.
Thank you. Any other discussion? So, So what's in front of us here, we're looking at 4 scenarios. These 4 scenarios have a bunch of detail on what the impacts might be for residential and commercial and institutional. Administration is looking for direction. Councilor Corbett?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be bold and put forward a recommendation that council consider scenario 2 as our option for the 2025 mill rate. I think it's a fairly balanced one. It does mean increases for everybody, but I think that we need a balance between residential increases and commercial. Because if we start pushing everything towards commercial and industrial, we risk disincentivizing investments in our community, commercial and industrial properties.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Councilor Heaton, second that motion. So is there discussion then on the motion for accepting of scenario number 2? I just want to say I also was in agreement with this number 2. It was one of my most highlighted on my page, so I'm glad that's the one you guys went with. I think it's most balanced. I think it's reflective on all sectors, that it's, you know, kind of going across everywhere, and we're trying to make it fair and equitable as we go forward. Is there any other questions, discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor? Perfect, everyone, it is carried. Very good. And now, so the next briefing note in regards to the stewardship of the Northern Light Museum.
Madam Chair, I will excuse myself from discussion on this matter.
Thank you, Councilor Fred.
Fred, I'll text you here or something. Okay, I'll text you. Oh, you, okay, that's right, you said.
All right, so we have it here in front of us. Do you want to speak to the briefing note at all?
If necessary, I can just sort of say what, just sort of, yes, please.
Okay, can I say, oh? Yes, yes, please.
Yes, please. So just to reiterate, we had a meeting in January in regards to this, and the recommendation by council was for mayor to attend presentations that were given to the other partnerships in our TLC partnership, and then upon gauging if there was willingness to engage further in the conversation, we would then form that working group. I understand that there's been a couple meetings since that time with some information sharing. I was away, Councillor Hood, or Director Hood attended them in my stead, and we had some discussion around that. And since that time, there was an agreement in principle put forth, which I thought contained some language that was committal, when at this time we have not had any direction from council to make any commitments. We are just going forward with further information gathering and determining what the next steps are, and bring it back to council at each stage to move forward to the next stage if there's an interest in doing so. So what I would like to request from council hopefully is the direction to and to have Mayor Ferguson speak to her attendance and her feeling on if there is willingness to form a working group by the partners, and that we then move forward to forming that working group, which would be have the mayor and the chiefs, and would have the SAO and the CEOs from the partner organizations together to have some honest discussions and to look at what the information will be required.
Thank you. Any discussion?
I agree that we need to pull back a little bit, just based on that recent cabin radio article. It seems that we're moving a lot faster than we actually are, and that's not the truth of it, right? Like, it's election year for 3 out of the 3 nations. We're running a very tight budget ourselves. I'm certainly not convinced that co-ownership of, the museum is something that's going to be ultimately beneficial to the community of Fort Smith and in the future. We need to be clear about what we are going to commit to and not be kind of just shuffled along in the process because we're not speaking up about it. I would like that the working group move forward with leadership only and their administrators, not board members from the Northern Land Museum and Culture Center. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councilor Bedwell, did you? No? Councilor?
I'll jump in since I've been on, I served on that board for 20 years. Different than my colleague, I think it potentially is a good thing for Fort Smith to be involved, but I do agree that we need to take our time. So it's the aspect of taking our time and doing it right that is the problem. I do think, and I believe personally, that the museum is a cultural asset of this community and will be a gem for the community going down the road. But we all have to be at the table and we all have to be treating it the same. And if we're moving too fast, that's not a good way to start.
Thank you. All right, so can I have, it sounds like, can I have a motion for to move forward on this briefing on that?
I move the council approve the recommendations outlined in the briefing note and direct administration to take the necessary steps to implement them.
And a seconder? Okay, Deputy Mayor. So those are the steps above, those 1 through 5 on the briefing note, as established, working group, financial commitments, getting clarification. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Perfect, all in favor. It is carried, thank you. Okay, so moving on. Okay, before we go to the other business, I'll just, because we move into camera, I'll just say that our next meeting for the Corporate Services Standing Committee meeting will be held on April 1st, 2025. And if I can have someone move us in camera, please. Yep. All right.
I move that council move in
Yeah,
camera.
you're done then. Thank you. Sorry, Councilor Quebec. Yeah.
Okay, I move that council move in camera in accordance with the Cities, Towns, and Villages Act, Section 23(3), paragraph E, a matter still under consideration on which council has not yet publicly announced a decision. If discussion in public would likely prejudice the municipality's corporation's ability to carry out its activities or negotiations.
All right, a seconder?
I second.
Perfect. Thank you. All in favor? We have moved in camera.